Captain Traz Vexxor of the Galactic Confederation starship Luminous Horizon gripped the command chair as another explosion rocked the bridge. Alarms blared. Emergency lights pulsed in rhythmic crimson waves across the once pristine command center. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled his 4 nostrils. Status report. Now he barked, his bluish-gray skin flushing purple with stress. Lieutenant Mira Nex, his operations officer, frantically worked her console with all 6 of her slender fingers. Shield integrity at 27%, Captain. Engine core operating at minimal capacity. We've lost weapons array 3 and 4 completely. Wonderful, Vexxor drawled, rolling his 3 eyes simultaneously. Absolutely marvelous. Nothing quite like being sitting prey for Craxx pirates on an ordinary supply run. Through the main viewport, 3 sleek, predatory vessels circled the luminous horizon like vultures. Their hulls, painted with jagged red markings, gleamed menacingly in the light of the near-binary stars. "They're hailing us again," Sir reported Communications Officer Zip Talorian, his antenna twitching nervously. "Put them through," Vexxor sighed. "Let's hear what creative threats they've come up with this time." The main screen flickered, revealing the grinning face of a Craxx pirate captain. Her scaled skin was the color of rust, adorned with ceremonial battle scars. Sharp teeth lined her wide smile. "Captain Vexxor." "My favorite Confederation lapdog," she purred, each word dripping with mock sweetness. "I am Captain Morza Drezz of the Crimson Fang Fleet. Your ship, your cargo, your crew. Hand them over, and perhaps I'll let you escape in a lifepod. You have 5 minutes to decide." The transmission cut off abruptly. "She seems nice," Vexxor remarked, prompting nervous laughter from his terrified bridge crew. "First Officer Lyra, what's the status of our distress beacon?" Commander Pella Lyra, a willowy Altarian with luminescent skin and eyes like polished obsidian, shook her head. "The main comms array is damaged. Our distress call is broadcasting, but on limited power. Nearest Confederation patrol is 3 days away at best." Vexxor nodded grimly. "And our little pirate friends out there?" "Sensors show they're positioning for boarding action," Security Chief Brax Corrigan reported, his normally steady voice cracking. "Their main vessel has at least 50 combat-ready pirates. We have 17 security personnel, most of them rookies fresh from the academy. And 200 civilian scientists and engineers who've never held a weapon," Vexxor added, drumming his fingers on the armrest. "Perfect odds." The ship rocked again as another blast struck their failing shields. 2 minutes until shield failure, the computer announced with infuriating calm. Vexxor closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his gaze fell on a small, unmarked button on his command console, one that wasn't on any official schematics. One that, technically, he wasn't supposed to have installed. One that might just save them all. If it didn't get them court-martialed first. Captain Lyra noticed his gaze. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," Vexxor said slowly, "that it's time to call in the monsters. 1 minute until shield failure," the computer repeated, its synthesized voice somehow managing to sound both bored and judgmental. Vexxor paced the bridge, his mind racing through options that dwindled with each passing second. The conventional solutions were gone, weapons crippled, engines damaged, communications array barely functional. Confederation reinforcements might as well be in another galaxy. "Status of escape pods," he demanded. Lieutenant Nex shook her head. "The pirates have positioned themselves to target any launch attempts. They've made that mistake before, sir." "Of course they have," Vexxor muttered. "Wouldn't want their precious cargo getting away." The cargo's scientific equipment and rare materials destined for a research outpost was valuable, but not worth dying for. The crew, however, that was another matter entirely. Vexxor's gaze drifted to a small, framed document mounted near his command chair. The Confederation Charter of Sentient Rights, with its flowery language about peace, cooperation, and diplomatic solutions. How utterly useless it seemed now, faced with pirates who viewed such principles as weaknesses to exploit. "Permission to speak freely," Sir Security Chief Corrigan approached, lowering his voice. "When have you ever waited for permission?" Brax Vexxor replied with a wry smile. Corrigan leaned closer. "There's another option. Not by the book. Not even in the same library as the book." Vexxor's third eye narrowed. "Go on." "Sector 87 Delta isn't far from the human border territories. Their patrols sometimes drift into these lanes, despite treaty restrictions. The humans' first officer, Lyra, had approached silently. You can't possibly be suggesting. I'm suggesting Survival Corrigan cut in. The humans might be close enough to respond before we're all decorating Captain Drezz's trophy wall. Vexxor considered this. The Galactic Confederation had maintained a cautious relationship with humanity for nearly a century. Humans weren't members, couldn't be, given their classification as Deathworlders, but they had trading rights and limited diplomatic presence. Contacting humans directly would violate at least 7 Confederation protocols, Lyra reminded them. We'd be facing court-martial if we survived. If being the operative word, Vexxor countered. Besides, what's the worst they could do? Demote me to captain of a garbage scow. Still better than being dead. Another impact rocked the ship. Sparks showered from an overhead console. 30 seconds to shield failure, the computer informed them cheerfully. The humans, Lyra hesitated, her luminescent skin dimming with concern. They're unpredictable, dangerous. You know the reports. Oh, I know them well, Vexxor nodded grimly. Evolved on a death trap of a planet with absurd gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, and constant natural disasters, somehow developed intelligence despite spending their evolutionary history as both predator and prey. They're savages, Lyra insisted. Their history is nothing but wars and violence. Exactly, Vexxor replied, a strange smile spreading across his face. And right now, we need some savagery on our side. The main screen flickered. Captain Drezz's smirking face appeared. Time's up, Vexxor. What's your answer? Vexxor straightened his uniform, all 3 eyes focusing on the pirate captain. Just need another minute to consider your generous offer, Captain Drezz. Shields at 5%, the computer announced. As Drezz's transmission cut off, Vexxor made his decision. He moved toward his command chair, fingers hovering over a concealed panel. Captain Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing? Breaking the rules, Vexxor replied simply. And possibly saving our lives, Captain. You can't be serious, First Officer, Lyra whispered, her obsidian eyes widening as she watched Vexxor's 3-fingered hand hover over the unmarked button. The Directorate explicitly forbids contact with them. Vexxor shot her a sideways glance. Got a better idea? Perhaps you'd prefer to be target practice for our scaled friends out there? Or maybe you fancy becoming Captain Drezz's newest trophy officer. The ship shuddered violently. Another hit. Somewhere below decks, crew members screamed. Shields at 12%, the computer announced. Structural integrity compromised on decks 7 through 11. Look, Lyra, Vexxor said, his voice dropping to a serious tone. 243 souls on this ship. I'm responsible for every single one. Pride, regulations, politics, none of that matters if we're dead. Lyra's luminescent skin pulsed with anxiety. The humans are unpredictable, Captain. Dangerous. There's a reason they're classified as Class-5 Deathworlders. 1 minute to shield failure, the computer chirped helpfully. Exactly why we need them, Vexxor replied with a grim smile. You know what they say, fight fire with fire. Or in this case, fight monsters with monsters. Before Lyra could protest further, Vexxor slammed his hand down on the button. A separate communications system, smaller, cruder, but remarkably powerful, lit up beneath his command console. This is Captain Traz Vexxor of the Galactic Confederation vessel Luminous Horizon, he spoke clearly into the emergency transmitter. We are under attack by Craxx pirates at coordinates Sector 87 Delta 94. Shields failing. Boarding imminent. Any human vessels in range. We request immediate assistance. He paused, then added authorization code Crimson Deathworlder. Message sent on quantum frequency, the secondary computer confirmed. You transmitted on an open channel, Lyra gasped. Every ship within 50 light minutes will know we've contacted them. Vexxor shrugged. Good. Let the pirates hear it too. Maybe they'll wet their scales and run. Or maybe they'll just kill us faster, Security Chief Corrigan muttered. Either way, Vexxor replied, settling back into his command chair with false calm. We've just changed the game. The humans have a saying, open Pandora's box. Well, my friends, consider it officially opened. And what exactly crawls out of this box of yours? Lyra asked. her voice barely audible over the alarms. Vexxor's three eyes narrowed as he stared at the pirate ships through the viewport, something the pirates aren't prepared for. Something none of us are prepared for. Shields failing, the computer announced. Prepare for boarding action. The Craxx boarding craft latched onto the Luminous Horizon with a sickening metallic crunch. Emergency bulkheads slammed down throughout the ship, compartmentalizing the vessel in a desperate bid to slow the inevitable invasion. "They've breached Docking Bay 3, Security Chief Corrigan reported, his voice tight as he monitored the security feeds. "My teams are falling back to defensive position Alpha." Captain Vexxor nodded grimly. "How long can they hold?" Corrigan's expression said everything. "With their numbers and weaponry, 20 minutes. 30 if we're lucky." "And how long until the humans might arrive, if they received our message, if they decide to help, and if they happen to have ships nearby?" Vexxor asked, already knowing the answer. "Minimum 45 minutes, First Officer," Lyra replied, her luminescent skin pulsing with stress patterns. "That's assuming they were already at maximum range of our transmission and immediately jumped to light speed." "So we're dead," Lieutenant Nex stated flatly from her operations console. "Not dead yet," Vexxor corrected, forcing a grim smile. "And that's an important distinction. Computer, activate Protocol Omega. Authorization Vexxor 77 Delta." Protocol Omega activated, the computer confirmed. All non-essential systems diverted to internal force fields and life support. The lights dimmed further as power redirected throughout the ship. Vexxor turned to his bridge crew, who watched him with expressions ranging from fear to desperate hope. "Listen up. We need to buy time. Lyra, get down to engineering. Help Chief Tobor shore up the reactor safeguards. If the pirates get control of this ship, I want them to work for it." Lyra nodded sharply and departed. "Corrigan, coordinate with security. I want a fighting retreat, deck by deck. Make them bleed for every meter." "Already on it, sir." "And Nex, keep trying to boost that distress signal. If there's a human ship out there, I want them to hear us loud and clear." Sir Nex hesitated. "Do you really think the humans will come? Why would they risk their ships for a Confederation vessel?" "Because humans are strange that way," Vexxor replied, remembering the classified reports he'd read. "They have this peculiar instinct to rush toward danger when everyone else runs away." The deck beneath them shuddered as an explosion rocked the ship. The intercom crackled with frantic reports and weapons fire. "Pirates have breached Deck 7. Fall back, fall back." Vexxor checked the chronometer. 18 minutes had passed since sending the distress call. Every second felt like an eternity. "If I may ask," Sir Communications Officer Talorian ventured, his antennae drooping, "what do we do if the humans actually arrive?" "Try not to get in their way," Vexxor replied darkly, "and hope they remember which side we're on when the shooting starts." Another explosion, closer this time. The bridge doors sealed automatically as the security systems detected intruders on the adjacent deck. Sir Corrigan's voice came through the comm, breathless and punctuated by weapons fire. "They're moving faster than anticipated. 5 minutes until they reach the bridge." Vexxor drew his sidearm, a standard-issue stunner, barely effective against Craxx pirates with their thick scales and reinforced nervous systems. "Well," he announced to his remaining bridge crew, "it's been an honor serving with you all. Let's make these last minutes count." The wounded Luminous Horizon drifted silently against the starfield, its attackers swarming through its corridors like a virus. And somewhere, perhaps unseen and undetected, something was coming. Something the galaxy had learned to fear. The bridge doors buckled under sustained weapons fire. Captain Vexxor and his remaining crew had overturned consoles for makeshift cover, their pathetic stunners clutched in trembling hands. Another impact. Metal groaned. The doors wouldn't hold much longer. "Any final words of wisdom?" Captain Lieutenant Nex asked, attempting to sound brave despite her quivering voice. Vexxor checked his weapon's charge. "Just one. Aim for the eyes. It's the only soft spot on a Craxx." The ship's sensors suddenly blared to life. Lieutenant Nex scrambled to the damaged operations console, her 6 fingers flying across the controls. "Captain. Spatial distortion detected. Multiple signatures there." A deafening roar drowned out her words as the fabric of space itself seemed to tear open. The main view screen showed the impossible, a massive, swirling vortex of blue-white energy erupting into existence barely 5 kilometers from their position. The pirate vessels scattered like startled insects. By the 13 Moons communications officer Talorian whispered, his antenna standing straight up in shock. "What is that?" "That," Vexxor said, a smile spreading across his face for the first time in hours, "is a human quantum fold drive signature. They actually came." From the swirling vortex emerged shapes that made Vexxor's 3 hearts skip in unison. Ships, angular, asymmetrical vessels bristling with weapon emplacements. Their hulls were matte black, absorbing rather than reflecting starlight, making them look like moving voids against the cosmic backdrop. Red and yellow warning stripes decorated their flanks, the universal colors of danger. "How many?" Vexxor asked, not taking his eyes off the screen. 7, no, 12 vessels, Nex reported, her voice hushed with awe. "Configuration unknown, not in any Confederation database." "Of course they're not," Vexxor murmured. "The humans don't share their military specifications." The lead human vessel dwarfed the others, a behemoth at least twice the size of the Luminous Horizon. Its bow was shaped like a wedge, designed to cleave through anything in its path. Massive cannons protruded from recessed ports along its flanks, and its engine section glowed with restrained power. The pirate ships were already turning. Their previous confidence evaporated at the sight of the human fleet. Too late. A flash of light erupted from the lead human vessel. Something streaked across space too fast for the naked eye to track. One of the pirate ships simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding cloud of superheated particles. "Sweet merciful ancestors," Talorian gasped. "Did you see that? What weapon could possibly?" "Focused antimatter," Lance Vexxor said quietly. "Banned by the Confederation Charter. Article 17, Section 4, prohibited weaponry." A second flash. A second pirate vessel vanished. The bridge doors finally gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Craxx pirates poured through, scaled bodies armored, weapons raised, and then froze as they saw the view screen. Captain Morza Drezz herself stood at the front, her rust-colored scales bristling with rage and dawning fear. "What have you done?" "Vexxor," she hissed. The remaining pirate ship, Drezz's command vessel, was now trying to flee. It didn't get far. 3 smaller human ships broke formation, intercepting it with impossible speed. No weapons fire this time. Instead, grappling beams lashed out, immobilizing the pirate vessel. The ship-wide comm system suddenly crackled. A human voice, deep, resonant, and somehow both casual and terrifying, filled the bridge. "Confederation vessel Luminous Horizon, this is Admiral Jackson Fletcher of the Terran Defense Force vessel Righteous Fury. Looks like you folks could use a hand. Hang tight. We'll clear out your pest problem." Vexxor looked at Drezz, whose scales had paled to a sickly orange. "Captain Drezz," he said with a smile that showed all his teeth, "allow me to introduce you to the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Captain Morza Drezz and her boarding party retreated from the bridge, scales flattened in terror. Vexxor didn't pursue. He didn't need to. The Craxx pirates were now caught between 2 threats: the ship's defenders and whatever was coming from those human vessels. Captain Nex called out, her voice hushed with awe, "The humans are launching boarding craft." On the view screen, sleek black shuttles detached from the larger human vessels, streaking toward both the Luminous Horizon and the captured pirate command ship. They moved with precision that bordered on impossible, their trajectories adjusting in microsecond intervals. "How many human troops?" Vexxor asked. Sensors indicate. Nex paused, adjusting controls. 12 shuttles, each containing approximately 8 life signs. 96 humans against over 100 pirates, Vexxor calculated. Seems almost fair. Communications Officer Talorian looked at him in disbelief. "Fair? Sir, with all due respect, those are almost certainly human marines. Do you know what those creatures are capable of?" "I've read the classified reports," Vexxor nodded grimly. "Which is why I'm staying right here on the bridge. Computer, patch into security feeds. Let's see what our saviors are up to." The view screen split into multiple feeds showing corridors throughout the ship. In Docking Bay 2, a human shuttle had already landed. The bay doors opened, and Vexxor felt his blood run cold. The humans emerged in formation, encased in powered armor that made them appear twice their already imposing size. The suits were matte black with the same danger-striped accents as their ships. Their helmets concealed their faces behind polarized visors, giving them an eerily anonymous quality. Each carried weapons that Vexxor recognized with dread MX-7 Gauss rifles, weapons that used electromagnetic acceleration to fire projectiles at velocities that could penetrate even Craxx battle armor. They're splitting into fire teams, Vexxor observed, professional interest momentarily overriding his fear. 4 units of 2, plus what appears to be a command element. The security feed suddenly picked up audio as the human commander activated their external speakers. Bravo Team, Secure Engineering. Charlie Team, Medbay. Delta Team, Bridge. Alpha with me, we're hunting the pirate leader. Rho is standard, hostiles are valid targets. Non-hostiles are to be secured and protected. Acknowledged. Major Reed came the chorus of responses. What happened next defied everything Vexxor thought he knew about combat tactics. The humans moved with coordinated precision that seemed almost choreographed, but with a fluidity that no training could fully explain. They advanced through the corridors of the Luminous Horizon like water flowing downhill, finding the path of least resistance while never losing their cohesion. They're not even using cover properly, Nex observed with confusion as they watched. They're exposed. They don't need cover, Vexxor replied softly. Not with those suits and reaction times. On another feed, a group of Craxx pirates had set up an ambush position, energy weapons trained on a junction. The humans approaching the junction suddenly stopped. The lead soldier tilted his head slightly, then made a series of hand gestures. Without warning, 2 humans launched small objects over the barricade. Bright flashes followed, accompanied by a high-pitched whine that made even the audio pickups distort. Sonic disruptors, Vexxor explained to his stunned crew. Calibrated to Craxx auditory frequency, they just turned those pirates' inner ear canals into scrambled eggs. The humans moved in before the disoriented pirates could recover, their movements a blur on the security feed. They didn't shoot to kill, at least not immediately. Each pirate received a precision shot to their weapon arm, followed by another to the leg joint. Methodical, efficient, terrifying. They're capturing, not killing, Talorian noted with surprise. Humans prefer live prisoners, Vexxor said. Something about due process and intelligence gathering very peculiar species. On another feed, a single human marine had become separated from her team and was confronted by 5 Craxx warriors. The pirates circled, confident in their numerical advantage. The human simply stood there, weapon lowered, head tilted as if curious. The pirates attacked simultaneously from all sides. What followed was so fast that Vexxor had to replay the feed at quarter speed to understand it. The human moved like liquid lightning, their armored form twisting in ways that seemed to defy physics. Each movement flowed into the next with no wasted energy. Within 6 seconds, all 5 pirates lay incapacitated. That's not possible, Nex whispered. Nothing moves that fast. Humans do, Vexxor replied. Their nervous system processes information at nearly twice the speed of most Confederation species. Combine that with muscles evolved under 9.8 meters per second of constant gravitational acceleration, and you get that. The ship-wide comm crackled again. This is Major Eliza Reed, TDF Marine Corps. All Confederation personnel, we have secured engineering, medical, and are proceeding to the bridge. Please remain in place. Repeat, remain in place. We're here to help. Vexxor looked at his stunned bridge crew, then at the security feeds showing humans systematically dismantling the pirate forces throughout his ship with surgical precision. I think he said with a mixture of relief and trepidation, that help has most definitely arrived. The bridge doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Captain Vexxor and his bridge crew instinctively tensed, despite knowing that the humans had secured the ship. 4 armored figures entered, weapons held at the ready but not aimed directly at anyone. Their movements were precise, controlled, and somehow unsettling in their efficiency. Clear announced the lead figure, a slightly taller Marine with command insignia on their shoulder plates. The Marine reached up and disengaged their helmet seal with a soft click. The faceplate retracted, revealing the face of a human female. Major Eliza Reed had skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that reminded Vexxor of the amber forests on Altair Prime. Her hair was cropped short against her skull, and a thin scar ran along her left jawline. She surveyed the bridge with analytical intensity before her face softened into what Vexxor recognized as a human smile. "Captain Vexxor, I presume," she asked, her voice less mechanical without the helmet's audio processors. Vexxor stood up straight, attempting to appear dignified despite the chaos of the overturned bridge. "Yes, Captain Traz Vexxor of the Confederation vessel Luminous Horizon. I thank you for responding to our distress call." Major Reed nodded. "Admiral Fletcher sends his compliments. He'd have come himself, but he's currently interviewing your pirate friend. Captain Drezz, I believe." The way she said interviewing sent a chill down Vexxor's spine. "Your ship is secure," Captain Reed continued, gesturing for her team to stand down. The other Marines deactivated their helmets as well, revealing faces that were simultaneously similar yet distinctly individual. "We've detained 43 pirates. Another 16 required immediate medical attention. The rest retreated to their command ship, which we've also secured." "Casualties?" Vexxor asked hesitantly. 7 of your crew, unfortunately. 21 injured, but our medics are treating them now." Major Reed's expression showed what appeared to be genuine regret. "We got here as fast as we could when we picked up your SOS." First Officer Lyra stepped forward, her luminescent skin pulsing with caution patterns. "You recognized our distress call, but it wasn't in human communication protocols." Reed's smile turned cryptic. "Let's just say we keep an ear out for certain frequencies, especially ones broadcasting Crimson Deathworlder." Vexxor felt his scales flush with embarrassment. "An unofficial recognition code." "A smart one," Reed acknowledged. "Now our engineering teams are already assessing the damage to your vessel. Admiral Fletcher has authorized full assistance in repairs." Lieutenant Nex had been staring openly at the human Marines, particularly their powered armor. One of the Marines, a male with dark skin and a friendly expression, noticed her fascination. "Like the hardware?" he asked, extending an armored arm. "Mark VI tactical response suit. Increases strength 5-fold, contains its own atmosphere, and can take a direct hit from most energy weapons." "It's remarkable," Nex replied, her 6 fingers hovering near but not quite touching the armor's surface. "You should see what we're not allowed to bring into Confederation space," another Marine added with a laugh that abruptly cut off when Major Reed shot him a warning glance. The bridge fell into an awkward silence. 2 species, separated by biology, evolution, and politics, suddenly thrown together by circumstance. Communications Officer Talorian broke the tension. "Is it true that humans can regenerate limbs?" The Marines burst into laughter. Major Reed shook her head, smiling. "No, that's a common misconception. We heal faster than most species, but we can't regrow limbs, though medical tech is working on it." "And can you really drink ethanol?" Talorian continued, fascination overriding protocol. "For pleasure." "That one is true," Reed confirmed with a grin. "In fact, once we get your ship patched up, I'd be happy to introduce you to a human tradition called buying you a drink. It's how we celebrate successful missions." Captain Vexxor found himself relaxing slightly. These fearsome Deathworlders, for all their deadly efficiency, seemed almost personable. "I believe," he said carefully, "that would be an acceptable cultural exchange." Major Reed's comm unit beeped. She touched it briefly, listened, then turned back to Vexxor with a more serious expression. "Admiral Fletcher would like to speak with you, Captain. It seems your pirate problem may be bigger than just this attack." The Luminous Horizon limped into Starbase Centauri, its hull pockmarked with battle damage despite the human engineers' best efforts at repairs. More concerning to Captain Vexxor, however, was the escort formation 3 sleek Confederation peacekeeping vessels that had intercepted them at the border, and the imposing human battleship Righteous Fury maintaining a respectful distance but very much present. "Well," Vexxor remarked to First Officer Lyra as they observed the approaching starbase, "we survived the pirates only to face the bureaucrats. I'm not sure which is more dangerous." "The difference," Lyra replied dryly, "is that pirates are at least honest about wanting to eviscerate you." The comm system chimed. "Captain Vexxor," came the clipped tones of Commodore Essex Tarl, the station's commander. "You will dock at Bay 9. Your crew will remain aboard pending investigation. You and your senior officers will report immediately to Conference Room Alpha for preliminary inquiry." Acknowledged, Commodore Vexxor responded, keeping his voice neutral despite the knot forming in his stomachs. And what about our escorts? A pause. The human vessel has been granted temporary docking privileges at the outer ring. Against my recommendation, I might add. Vexxor exchanged glances with Lyra. The involvement of humans in Confederation affairs had clearly ruffled some important feathers. 2 hours later, Vexxor stood before a hastily assembled tribunal consisting of Commodore Tarl, Ambassador Jean Voss of the Diplomatic Corps, and Fleet Admiral Darius Creel, who had apparently interrupted a vacation on nearby Proxima I to personally oversee this political firestorm. Captain Traz Vexxor. Admiral Creel began, his tentacles writhing with barely contained anger. You stand accused of violating Confederation Security Protocol 87B regarding unauthorized contact with Class-5 Deathworlders, endangering Confederation human diplomatic relations, and potentially exposing classified Confederation technologies and protocols to an unaligned species. How do you respond? Vexxor stood at attention, his 3 eyes focused straight ahead. With all due respect, Admiral, I responded to a direct threat to my ship and crew using the only available option. 243 lives were saved through my actions. At what cost? Hissed Ambassador Voss, her feathers bristling. Do you have any idea of the diplomatic chaos you've created? The humans are now demanding expanded patrol rights in 3 sectors, citing security concerns based on your pirate encounter. Perhaps they have a point, Vexxor suggested, immediately regretting his words as the tribunal members collectively stiffened. Commodore Tarl leaned forward. Captain, are you advocating for increased human military presence in Confederation space? I am advocating for my crew's survival, Vexxor replied firmly, which was only possible because of human intervention. The fact remains that Confederation patrols are spread too thin to adequately protect our vessels in outlying sectors. So now you're a strategic analyst as well as a starship captain. Admiral Creel's tentacles lashed about angrily. Your actions have forced us into a negotiating position with the humans from a standpoint of weakness. They're already leveraging their heroic rescue in the press. As if on cue, the door to the conference room slid open. Admiral Jackson Fletcher of the Terran Defense Force entered, still wearing his formal uniform with its intimidating array of medals and commendations. Without waiting for an invitation, he pulled out a chair and sat down. Hope I'm not interrupting, Fletcher said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But since you're discussing the incident involving my ships and my personnel, I thought I should be present. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. This is a Confederation internal matter, Admiral Fletcher. Ambassador Voss said stiffly. Is it? Fletcher raised an eyebrow. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're about to punish a starship captain for saving his crew by calling for help. Where I come from, that's what captains are supposed to do. Admiral Creel's tentacles went rigid, a sign of extreme displeasure. Where you come from, Admiral Fletcher, is not relevant to Confederation protocols. Maybe it should be, Fletcher replied evenly. Especially when those protocols nearly got good people killed. Vexxor watched the exchange with growing unease. He had survived pirates only to find himself in the middle of an interspecies political showdown. And somehow, that seemed far more dangerous. Admiral Fletcher leaned back in his chair, seemingly oblivious to the tension he'd created. With casual deliberation, he placed a small metallic disc on the conference table. It glinted under the bright lights of the room. What is this? Admiral Creel demanded, tentacles coiling defensively. This, Fletcher replied, tapping the disc with one finger, is why Captain Vexxor deserves a medal rather than a court-martial. The disc projected a holographic display that filled the center of the conference table. Data streams, communication logs, and financial records swirled in a complex 3-dimensional pattern. During our little chat with Captain Morza Drezz, Fletcher continued, his friendly tone belying the steel beneath, we recovered some very interesting information from her ship's quantum encrypted database. Our AI decryption specialists had a field day with it. The hologram shifted, highlighting specific data points and connections. Names began to appear: Confederation officials, shipping magnates, military officers. Financial transactions linked them to known pirate operations throughout 3 sectors. That's impossible, Ambassador Voss sputtered, her feathers now flattened in alarm. These people are respected members of Confederation society. And apparently, Fletcher added dryly, part-time pirate financiers. The Craxx raid on the Luminous Horizon wasn't random. It was targeted specifically because of what Captain Vexxor's ship was carrying. Vexxor's three eyes widened in realization. The experimental quantum field stabilizers for the research outpost, but those are purely scientific equipment. With potential military applications, Fletcher nodded. The kind of technology certain parties don't want reaching completion. Admiral Creel's tentacles had gone completely still, a sign of shock among his species. Director Solvin Blix? He's the Undersecretary of Defense. Why would he? 20 million credits transferred to a shell corporation on Proxima IV, Fletcher said, highlighting the transaction, which then funded Captain Drezz's operation through 3 intermediaries. Quite the money laundering scheme. The room fell silent as the 3 tribunal members stared at the evidence hovering before them. Vexxor felt a strange mixture of vindication and horror. "How long have you known about this?" Commodore Tarl finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Fletcher's expression hardened. "We've suspected corruption in your border security for years. Patterns were too convenient, response times too slow, but we lacked concrete evidence until now." "And you expect us to simply accept your evidence?" Ambassador Voss challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. "This could be fabricated." "The Craxx pirates currently in our brig would disagree," Fletcher replied. "They've been quite forthcoming since we explained the concept of plea bargains to them. Amazing how cooperative pirates become when faced with human justice versus Confederation rehabilitation protocols." He stood, straightening his uniform. "This evidence will be presented to the Confederation Security Council within the hour. Your own investigators can verify its authenticity." Fletcher turned to Vexxor, offering a respectful nod. "Captain, your distress call did more than save your crew. It cracked open a conspiracy that's been costing lives across this sector for years." Ambassador Voss sank back in her chair, feathers drooping. "If this is true, it represents the highest level of treason in Confederation history." "Yes," Vexxor said quietly, finding his voice at last. "And it means the biggest pirates weren't the ones attacking my ship. They were the ones who sent them. 1 month later, Captain Traz Vexxor stood at attention in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Confederation capital. The 5 suns of the Arcturus system streaming through the crystalline dome overhead. The chamber buzzed with the representatives of 200 species, all gathered for what the newsfeeds were calling the most significant diplomatic summit in a century. Captain Traz Vexxor intoned High Chancellor Mira Vax, her voice amplified throughout the vast chamber, stepped forward. Vexxor approached the central dais, conscious of the billions watching this broadcast across Confederation space. His dress uniform felt uncomfortably tight around his neck. For acts of exceptional courage in the face of overwhelming danger, for upholding the highest ideals of the Confederation, even when those entrusted with its protection failed, and for opening a new chapter in interspecies cooperation, I present you with the Star of Valor, the Confederation's highest honor. The medal, a starburst of precious metals mined from a dozen worlds, was placed around his neck. The assembly erupted in applause. "Thank you," High Chancellor Vexxor said, his voice steady despite his racing hearts. "But the true heroes were the humans who answered our call when no one else could." He turned to where Admiral Fletcher stood with a delegation of human officials, their formal attire markedly different from the Confederation styles, more angular, utilitarian, yet undeniably impressive. "I once thought of humans as dangerous," Vexxor continued, addressing the entire assembly. "As creatures to be feared and kept at a distance. I was right about one thing: they are dangerous, but not to those who stand beside them as friends." The High Chancellor raised her hands for silence. "Today marks more than the honoring of heroes. Today we ratify the Human Confederation Security Accord, establishing joint patrols in all border sectors, and, for the first time, opening a path for eventual human membership in the Confederation." Murmurs rippled through the assembly, not all of them approving. Change never came easily to a governmental body spanning hundreds of light years and thousands of years of tradition. Later at the reception, Vexxor found himself standing beside Admiral Fletcher on a balcony overlooking the capital city's glittering spires. "So," Fletcher said, raising a glass of what humans called whiskey, and what most Confederation species classified as industrial solvent, "how does it feel to be the captain who changed galactic politics?" Vexxor sipped his own, much milder beverage. "Terrifying. Exhilarating. I joined the Confederation fleet to explore strange new worlds, not to rewrite diplomatic history. What? Fletcher laughed. That's how it usually works. The biggest changes come from the smallest decisions. One distress call, and here we are. There's still resistance, Vexxor noted, gesturing toward a group of officials who were pointedly avoiding the human delegation. Many fear what closer ties with humanity might mean. They should, Fletcher replied, his expression growing serious. Humanity isn't perfect, Captain. We're aggressive, ambitious, and we don't always look before we leap. But we're loyal to our friends and absolutely relentless against our enemies. Which is precisely why the galaxy needs you, came a new voice. First Officer Lyra approached, her luminescent skin glowing with celebration patterns. The Confederation has grown complacent, comfortable. We forgot that the universe isn't always kind. And now, Fletcher asked. Now, Vexxor said, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky, we remember that the most dangerous species in the galaxy isn't the one that bares its teeth first. It's the one that smiles, extends a hand, and says, "Let me help you," while carrying a big stick behind its back. Fletcher raised his glass. To new alliances. To new alliances, Vexxor agreed, and to the SOS that brought the Deathworlders to our door not as conquerors, but as saviors. As the celebration continued around them, Vexxor couldn't help but wonder what the galaxy would look like in a century, with humanity fully integrated into Confederation affairs. One thing was certain: it would never be the same again. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was exactly what it needed.